In the dimly lit tavern nestled within the labyrinthine streets of King's Landing, the air was thick with smoke and the hushed murmurs of patrons engrossed in their own secrets. Wooden beams creaked overhead, and the stone walls absorbed the flickering light of a few scattered candles. Shadows danced across the faces of the men gathered in the dark corners, but none were as conspicuous as the two who sat at a secluded table toward the back. Lord Eddard Stark, the hand of the king, leaned forward, his brows knitted in a furrow of concern. The Stark armor he wore, though plain compared to the silk and gold of the capital's courtiers, bore a quiet dignity. His eyes were sharp, fixed on the man across from him. This was no casual meeting. The stakes were too high, and the secrets too dangerous. Opposite him sat Petyr Baelish, better known as Littlefinger, a man whose appearance and manner exuded an effortless charm. Clad in fine garments with the hint of a smile curling his lips, he seemed the very image of a harmless nobleman, but his eyes held a glint of cunning that betrayed his true nature. He swirled a cup of wine in his hand, as if savoring the game that was unfolding before him. Ned's voice was low and steady, a deliberate attempt to mask the urgency that gripped him. "I have reason to believe the Queen's children are not of Robert's blood," he began, his words laced with the gravity of the revelation. "They are Jaime Lannister's bastards. The truth could tear the realm apart." Littlefinger's smile deepened, his amusement barely concealed. "That is a dangerous accusation, my lord," he replied, his tone casual as though discussing the weather. "And what do you plan to do with such a dangerous secret?" He leaned back in his chair, the candlelight casting elongated shadows over his face. Ned hesitated for a moment, his hand clenching into a fist on the table. "I'll present my findings to the king. Robert deserves to know the truth." Littlefinger chuckled softly, his voice a velvety whisper. "Ah, honor," he said, as if the very word was a jest. "Such a noble concept. But, my dear friend, the court is not as straightforward as the battlefield. A truth can be a weapon if wielded correctly, or a trap for the unwary." Ned's gaze hardened. "What do you suggest?" The sly smile returned to Baelish's lips. "Evidence," he said, leaning in close. "Gather undeniable proof before you take action. Otherwise, the Lannisters will strike before you have a chance to draw your sword." For a moment, silence hung heavy between them, as if the entire tavern held its breath. Ned understood the weight of the words. This was not just advice, but a warning. He could see the machinations of politics in Littlefinger's eyes, the understanding of how to play the Game of Thrones. But Ned was a man of honor, and the thought of scheming behind closed doors sickened him. "I'll not play games, Baelish," he replied sternly. Littlefinger's expression softened, but his eyes remained calculating. "Then you may find yourself swept from the board, my lord. King's Landing is a dangerous place for a man who won't play." As Ned stood to leave, the flickering light cast his shadow long and stark against the stone, a silent reminder that the truth was rarely simple in the capital, and the path of honor was often paved with treachery. He walked out of the tavern, leaving behind a man who was as much ally as adversary, and who wore his loyalty like a cloak, thin, and easy to discard when the wind shifted. Littlefinger watched him go, his smile lingering like the faintest echo of laughter in the dim light.